it's been a little bit. I hope you are all enjoying a slightly cooler weather if you are in this part of the world. I am definitely really ready for fall, and I feel like I'm way more inspired at this time of year, which is why I just made myself sit down and film, otherwise it won't happen for another month. Things have been a little crazy for me lately. I might have mentioned before that I went back to school, and I have not been coping very well with that transition. So I've really dove back into my knitting, and it's been really nice to have some place to kind of escape to and make something. I don't get that same kind of accomplishment as I do when I am making things, and I've had a real upswing in that lately. So I have some finished projects here, none which I am wearing. I'm actually wearing my Be Thankful cardigan by Lily Kate Makes, but I wanted to be able to really show you guys without having to get up and move around. So my most notable make would probably be my cardigan number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I have been working on this cardigan for so long. Believe it or not, it was one of my first knitting projects, which was a huge mistake. I had never made a cardigan before, I had never made a raglan before, and I jumped into this intermediate pattern. I can get very literal, especially when I am unsure about something or I don't have a lot of confidence in what I'm doing. And so every time I went to knit this pattern, I would make a silly mistake and get so far that I would just have to scrap it and redo the whole thing. And this last time I made it, I didn't love the sleeve length, and I had made another one of those silly mistakes early on, so I decided I'll scrap it, remake it. I would rather be happy with this thing after how much work I've put into it, and I've learned the hard way to really take time and focus on what I want in a sweater the first time. That being said, I did make mistakes on this one, actually really early on, but this time I was more concerned about just finishing. I know that goes against everything I just said, but it's so small that, and in the back, I don't think it will be that noticeable. Definitely not noticeable for other people, just me, and it does irk me a little bit, but only because I know it's there. It's not that big of a deal. I'll get over it. But this is a pattern that is knit holding 3 strands of mohair or lace together, and I use the Debbie Bliss Angel in stone. It's so fuzzy and just nice, and it's a little airier than I was expecting too. Right now I am just focusing on finding enough to wear under it, which is what I will mention in my works in progress. I also finished 2 of the children's sweaters I was knitting, the first being the cuff to cuff pullover, and this was a free pattern by Jennifer Hagen. I just used the leftover cotton that I had from the bag that I crocheted. And so it's not super comfortable, but I think that it will do if we need it. It's also not uncomfortable, but it's just not the ideal cotton maybe for this. I made it for my son, who is 5, and I made it in the size 6-7. Unfortunately, it's a little too short for him, but he's very tall for his age. So if we can either make that work with layering or wait until my daughter grows into it. But I love the texture of this one. It's just a really neat pattern, and I'm interested in finding a nice textured knit like this for myself. And the other one I finished was the Friday mini sweater by Petite Knit, and this one is also for my son, but it will definitely fit him. He's actually going to have to grow into this one a little bit, but I love this sweater. It's in a broken rib all over, and I used the Cascade Superwash Sport for this one in a black and cream color. I love this sweater so much, and it has made me want one so badly, and I feel like I've had a lot of rib knit sweaters lately, so I'm just doing a lot of just knit, purl, and I think once I give myself a break, I can come back to that because I've kind of moved into a stockinette stage now, so I think I'll be missing breaking that up in a little while. And there is a sweater by My Favorite Things Knitwear that I've been seeing making the rounds, and I'm not entirely sure what the name is, but I will pop up a picture here. It's the same kind of concept, but it's not tapered at all around the hems, and I believe it's a split hem, but it just looks really nice and drapey, and I love the pattern. It's gorgeous. And the last one I've knit up while I've been gone is the As If Tee by Shay Johnson. This is one of those knits that I loved as soon as I saw it, but every time I thought about wearing it, I didn't think I would be brave enough. And I was leaning towards maybe like an all black version or an all white version. I thought I would wear those more, but I made an impulse buy of this yarn and decided that I would just go for it. And I'm happy I did because I really love it. And it's something that's not nearly as scary as I thought. And now that I think about it, for as much as I talk about how afraid I am of color and how that's usually not my wardrobe, so much of what I've made so far when I'm making clothes for myself has been very colorful. So I don't know if I'm just going through a transitional stage in my taste, or if it's just more fun to knit with color. I think that's probably it, and to sew with color, but I really love this and I'm super excited to wear it. I think this will actually be one of those things I can get away with in cooler weather here because it doesn't get that cold. This pattern calls for an Aran weight and a lace weight yarn. You are supposed to work up the body with the Aran weight, and then you can incorporate mohair once you get to the top. I decided to incorporate mohair the whole way through so that it would be a smoother transition. I also used the Yarn Bee hand dyed that I saw at our local Hobby Lobby, and this is a fingering weight, and I actually think it's a light fingering weight, but I just held this double with the mohair for the whole body. And then when I got to the top, I used the Debbie Bliss Angel that I originally had for my balloon sweater, and I have frogged this poor yarn so many times that it looked a little threadbare with just one strand. So I actually, where you start to incorporate the mohair, I actually just held the mohair double and did that. So it's a little thicker. You might want a more see-through effect, but I just felt like my poor mohair looked too rough for that. So something I have been working on is to wear under my cardigan number 4, and that is the Cumulus top by Petite Knit. And right now it's barely there. I just have the triangles for it. But this is just a nice, simple tank. And I really like the I-cord details for it. I actually haven't done that technique yet, so I'm excited to learn. But I just wanted something nice and simple. I felt like something with too much going on might clash with it, which probably not. It's probably just a me thing. But I'm using the Cascade Yarns Ultra Pima in Fine. It's 100% cotton. And this is my first kind of foray with apparel cotton, and I am really liking it so far. I've had it in my mind that I was going to make more clothes that I could wear when it's a little bit warmer out. So as far as plans, I actually have something really exciting. I first saw mention of this designer and this pattern on the Fruity Knitting podcast, and that is Crystal Seyfarth. And I really love her designs. They are very colorful, which kind of scared me, and the catch with some of her designs is that you have to actually buy a kit. And so I had a hard time deciding which one that I thought I would be brave enough to wear if I got it. I saw the Caledonia coat in the beach colorway, and I thought if there's one that I would feel comfortable with just going for, it was this one. So this is actually going to be my birthday for this year. We ordered it and it came in quicker than I expected. you get the big bag. It was, of course, nicer when it first got in, but I dug into it so I can show you the different colors. Now, it seems like the main pattern will be in these colors, just a nice kind of natural color, actually very close to what I'm wearing today, in this nice dusty blue. And I really love the detailing on the bands of this one, which is like a checkered print in this gorgeous dark blue and purple. I just love how she plays with colors, and while some of them are maybe a bit too bold for me, I was so excited that I found one that really worked for me, because I love the idea of having a really nice knit coat, and it's something that is just so unique and fun and bring even more whimsy to my basic wardrobe. So with sewing, I really have been keeping it very basic still. I'm trying to just get some nice pairs of pants and basic shirts out of the way. One of those is the simple linen tee. It is a free pattern from fabricstore.com. I used a lightweight linen for this, so it is pretty see-through, but I love how nice and airy it is, and I think I will be trying this in some other fabrics for sure. I just wanted something with a very relaxing silhouette, because I will definitely reach for that more. I did end up hacking my Yari jumpsuit, which I believe now goes under another name, so I will put that up because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I was having a lot of problems with the straps on that one, and I tried to see if I could alter that a little bit without making it look too bad, and it was not working out. But I loved how the pants looked, how the bottoms looked on it, so I decided to just cut off the top of those and salvage the pants, and these actually worked out very nicely. I just added an elastic band, and I'm very happy with how these turned out. I really like the pants pattern on that, so maybe that's something I will play with in the future, because I think maybe I need to take a step back and still focus on some of the more simpler patterns. These are nice and roomy and comfortable, and I think I will wear these a lot. So I will take that into consideration when making more pants in different fabrics for the future. Hello, so I am here in front of my books, not necessarily for this, but because it's the least offensive spot in the room and also has a little bit of light, so let's take advantage of that. So I haven't been keeping up with my reading journal the way that I had hoped. I'm not sure if I will continue on a monthly basis, just because I found that I couldn't really give up my Goodreads. I needed somewhere to kind of store things, and I had to keep it anyways because I might forget what I had read before I could actually print them out and put them in the journal. So I decided to just add some pages for fun in the back, mainly series or little challenges I kind of give myself to be able to kind of mark things off of a list. It's not anything that I'm really holding myself to. Like, one of them is reading through all of Stephen King's works, and obviously I'm not going to force myself to do that if I don't feel like it, but it's kind of fun to see my progress as I go, and I might keep some of my favorite series or just the longer series in the back. I did read one Stephen King this month. I read Carrie. My plan with his books was to try to go chronologically, because I know that he makes a lot of references to past works. I've read newer books that have made references to old books, or even maybe spoiled older books, so I'm trying to keep that as chronological as possible. But I haven't really been reading a lot of his books this year, and I feel like I was more into thrillers last year as maybe one of the coping mechanisms, but this year I really took a turn with my reading and started kind of stepping out of my comfort zone in a lot of ways, and it's been really nice. So I may go back to that challenge. Like I said, I read one, it was October, so I kind of wanted a light spooky read, and I enjoyed it. I usually enjoy his work for the most part, but I'm not going to put any kind of restraints on myself, because that is the biggest mood killer for me when it comes to reading. And speaking of, I was recently in a huge reading slump. When I started school, I was dealing with the fact that it kind of broke my brain, and I needed to take care of my mental health and get some things under control. But in the meantime, I was losing a lot of interest, just kind of spending most of my time stressing and worrying. I needed something to pull me out of that. But it was kind of a happy accident, because this was not a book that I was fully committed to purchasing or reading. See, that's the... It is A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. And this was originally one that I picked just completely based on the cover, because it kind of reminds me of my current favorite series, which I also can just grab. These are currently my favorite books, the Books of Babel, the first one being Sinlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. And it's kind of, it does lean steampunk, but it reads kind of like a Victorian fantasy adventure. I may talk more about this series soon, because the final book in this series is actually coming out this month, and I'm so anxious and nervous and excited to read that one. But this book kind of reminded me of that because of the cover, and I was even more surprised to find out that there are a lot of similarities there. And so I put it in one of my wish lists as a kind of, maybe I'll get to it. And then I thought it was a middle grade novel, so it kind of got pushed down my TBR. And my husband surprised me with it one day, and I saw that it's actually YA, which scared me even more. I'm just not very brave when it comes to YA, because I'm very picky and I'm a huge mood reader, and I have found for the most part that YA doesn't work for me, so I usually don't try it unless I'm feeling extra adventurous. So I didn't want it to just kind of go to waste sitting on the shelf, so I decided to start reading it to my kids at night. What we usually do is kind of read something for them, and then read something with more advanced vocabulary, or read one of our books if it's not too intense for them. As it went on, this first book was a tad slow going, just as I was kind of deciding what I felt about it. And so essentially you're following this young girl who lives in a world that has kind of been shattered. Everybody is kind of split up on arcs, and each arc kind of has this special ancestor, and everybody on the arc is descended from them, and they get their powers. And so she comes from the arc of anima, where objects can be animated by people, and she is also a reader, but through touch. So she always wears gloves because she can pick up the emotions and the memories of the last person who touched something if she touches that same object. Anyways, she runs a museum, and she's pretty content with just being an archivist and studying objects from their arc's past, and doesn't really want to get married or start a family. But after turning down too many marriage proposals in her own arc, she is betrothed to a man from another arc that is very unlike her own. And so we follow her as she very unwillingly goes to this other arc, to this completely different way of life. I'm not going to say too much, because what I love about books like this and about the Books of Babel is that it does feel like you're on an adventure. You don't really know what to expect next. They open up these possibilities, so you don't know whether you're going to experience something really ordinary or really fantastical next. And I really love that. But because this first book is a lot of her just kind of acclimating to her new surroundings in a situation that she is not willingly participating in, it can be very frustrating. And for a while, I didn't think I was going to continue. I didn't even know if I was going to finish the book. but I kind of stayed with it, and as I got closer to the end, I started reading it on my own, not just to my kids. They were okay with that. They weren't really paying attention, but I really started enjoying it, and then by the absolute end, I was hooked, and I had to order the next book immediately. And that led to a feeling I haven't really had since high school, where I would tear through these books and then immediately order the next one and just sit in agony waiting to know what happened next. So I have the next two, The Missing of Clairdelune and The Memory of Babel, and I ordered the final one on Kindle because it's still only out in hardback. This is a French to English translation. They all fall around the 550 page mark, somewhere in there, but they're really quick reads, like I said, because they are YA. There are definitely more of like the YA tropes, but nothing that bothered me, and there were some that I actually really enjoy, and I would definitely recommend, if you just want a quick read, if YA is your thing, check it. Maybe not. Maybe the fact that I really enjoyed these, maybe it might not be a good thing if you usually love YA. Yeah, some of the reviews are mixed. I understand the first book can be pretty frustrating, but it really paid off for me in the end, and I am really sad that it's over now. Something else I just wanted to mention of note, I started kind of dabbling back into graphic novels. I used to be really into them. I get in those stages where I read everything I can get my hands on for a while and then take like a year-long break or something, but I picked this one up for the second time. I originally read, I think, the first 2 volumes. This is The Sixth Gun, by the way. And I don't know what exactly it was. I think because the art style kind of threw me for my first read-through. I just kind of wanted something, I guess, a little grittier. It's great artwork too. I don't know what it was exactly, or if I was just in a weird kind of way. Let me find but the artwork is good. I don't know what the kind of holdup was for me, but I rated this 4 stars my first read through, and then I decided to try to finish out the series, and we ordered more of the volumes, and my second read through, this was just completely fantastic. Essentially, there are 6 different guns with kind of apocalyptic level power, and they tether themselves to whoever is currently wielding the gun until that person dies. Obtaining all the guns means ultimate power in decision. I don't want to give too much away, but many different people want these guns for their own reasons. I would really recommend this if graphic novels are your thing, or if you are interested and maybe you haven't. I think this would be a great introductory series. It's an amazing story with a lot of really interesting lore and dark themes without just being disturbing for the sake of it. It's not going to try to, I don't know, like shock your pants off like Garthinus might. But I think that it would be a great introductory series if this is something that you are interested or wanting to try out. I'm not finished yet. I am about to start the 8th volume, so hopefully it stays good, but so far this has been, I want to say, just 5 stars throughout every volume. It's fantastic. So it's completely normal for me to have about 4 books that I'm reading at the same time. I'm a mood reader, so I like to hop around to whatever I'm really enjoying at the moment. And this has been something I've been, pretty much savoring for maybe a year now. This is Falls the Shadow by Sharon K. Penman, and I have the dust jacket behind me, but it is the second book in the Welsh Princes trilogy. Let's see. The first book here was Here Be Dragons. One of my all-time favorites. She does historical fiction, but hitting on historical events as they happen. And because I did not learn anything about, well, history in pretty much any other country or continent in my education, reading these are fascinating. In this book, you are not following one character, you're kind of jumping around. This seems to maybe serve as a bridge between the first and the third book, but you are focusing on Simon de Montfort, who was the Earl of Leicester, and all of the political intrigue and wars that kind of happened in the first book, we are continuing as he is rebelling against King Henry. The first one focused a lot on political intrigue and kind of the intricacy of war, especially among family members. That one was a lot more dramatized because you had this character that you're following, Joanna of Wells, who was in this very, very delicate position where she was married off to a man who goes to war with her father. So that was extremely fascinating to read, especially since I know nothing about any. But yeah, this picks up after, and I feel like we are mainly building up to a character who I think we will probably follow. This is the Welsh Princes trilogy, and we kind of have a Welsh prince hanging out in the background of this one, but I feel like it will probably turn into his story for the next book, which I'm super excited about. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm almost finished with this one. It's still a really enjoyable read, fascinating, especially if you know nothing about the history like me. If you do, then it might not be as riveting to you because this one is mostly just hitting the high notes of the events. I'm wanting to finish these before I get to Sun and Splendor, which I know is much loved. But I'm also reading The Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. This is another kind of Victorian set period piece where this young woman and man who are con artists team up to swindle this kind of naive girl out of her fortune. And I would say for the best reading experience of this one, don't look into it at all. It's not the end of the world if you read the blurbs or read some reviews that, give some of the things away, but to make it even a purer experience than I had, I would go into it knowing absolutely nothing, and it's a wild ride, and it's been so good so far. I'm a little over halfway, and so much is happening already that I hesitate to even share the film that was inspired by this book. It is a foreign film, but maybe decide whether you want to know or if you want to read the book so you can just go in and have a really great time. It's been a really enjoyable read so far. So that is all that I am currently reading. There is more that I have just finished recently, but I feel like it's impossible for me to keep up with my reading here since I haven't been posting as often, and I feel like just remembering what I want to talk about with individual books and having time or ranting and rambling, and most of the time I do that and don't even realize that I didn't even talk about what the book was about. But if you're like me, once I gain interest in a book, I want to know as little as possible. Like, I want somebody to sell me a book without telling me what is going to happen in that book, because I want to be taken for my own ride. I really want to know as little as possible. So I will try to toe the line of telling you why something interests me without giving too much away, in case you're like me. And then if you are not like me, then you will be able to actually go and look up all the juicy details for yourself if you want to know more. But that is all I have for my reading for now. Maybe if I stay a little more current, I can share more about what I'm reading. And yeah, let me know what you've been reading, what you've been enjoying, what you've been knitting, crocheting, making. I hope to include some other fun stuff that I usually get into around this time of year, maybe for some of my future videos. But thank you for being here and watching as always, and I will see you next time.